Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Candost. I'm a software engineer, and today we will talk about diversity, gender discrimination, and women in tech. And my guest is Yasemin. Yasemin works as a senior software engineer in Bonial, and she's a friend of mine from university. So I know her like more than 10 years, most probably. And she is really nice person, and in general I see many times people are talking about issues or like the topics related to women, but they're all men, and this is not a thing that I wanted to do. So without further ado, welcome, Yasemin.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Please tell us a bit about yourself. I know that you have a diverse experience in software development, and I want to learn and
Yeah.
also maybe other people are curious about.
Yeah. Currently, I'm working as a Senior Backend Engineer in Bonn. I'm currently in Berlin, and this is my first job in Berlin. And I'm working for 2 years now here. Before that, I switched 3 jobs in Istanbul. The first one was a company we were developing something for the banks, and I was working for a small team and writing mainly Java client application. It was a desktop application, not too much fancy microservice architecture. It's just poor old Java. And then afterwards, I switched to Siemens. And it was such a mess. I actually worked in so many teams there. I started as, again, like a Java engineer. We were writing some code for the routers for the actual devices.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't find so many C++ engineers, so they just did it with Java, and it was a disaster. And then I switched another team, and I worked as a QA engineer, even like system test engineer. We were writing automated tests for the devices, again in Java. And afterwards, I switched to backend. And yeah, it was one of the best jobs, I think. Like, I learned so many things there. And afterwards, I switched to GE. It was a very short amount, like 5 months.
What's
as
GE?
General Electric.
Okay.
They're in a air industry, whatever. I really don't know so much. But yeah, they're mainly working for air industry, and they're doing, we were having so many air engineers and stuff. And we were developing applications for most of the what is it called? Aviation.
Airplane. Okay.
Yeah, aviation. Thank you. You know my job better than me. Oh, thank you. We were, it was a full stack role mostly, but I was mostly writing front end, and I hated it that time because I was not very competent in front end. And now I'm working as a backend engineer. Oh. Yeah, I worked in so many things that requires Java, I think. Yeah,
like a JVM person you are.
Yeah.
Okay. My general, I have one related question about one. So since you have been in so many roles, like different, like QA, full stack, front end, back end, and tell me about like which roles are more challenging for women in general. But I know that you have more experience or more diverse experience than me, but you have a diverse experience, and I want to learn as much as you know, as much as you have experienced, which roles are more challenging than for women.
I cannot, of course, compare how is it challenging for men and women, because I can only see it from a woman experience. And for me, more challenging part was when you become a more of a senior engineer, you of course see more challenging problems and you deal with them. But most of the time, the challenges I have because I'm a woman was not because of the technical issues, let's say. It was not because I was challenging so many like bugs that was hard to fix, or some architectures that was very, very requires lots of thinking, but it was more of a social challenge. Because since you're a woman, people expect less from you or more from you, depending on the situation. If you're in the lead positions, people tend to give up on you very quickly because you're a woman and you, of course, gonna fail, because you're a manager and you're a woman. So that was the challenges, I think, more. Like social challenges were more, I think.
Okay, so I'm putting a bit relation about the social challenges to the general diverse topic in tech companies. Like, for example, when I look back to my current job and my previous jobs and every company that I've seen before, generally there are more, like, there's a better diversity in product teams, like design teams or product managers. And I guess this is more like it requires being more social. Maybe that's a challenge that we can say. But when I compare with engineering teams, I can say that engineering teams, especially backend and DevOps, maybe the infrastructure teams and security teams, the product teams have more women, or they are better in diversity. So why do you think it's like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very nice question because we tend to think, like, first of all, I need to say that I don't think product teams are more social than other engineering teams. Of course, in product teams, lots of the days you're always speaking with people. You try to resolve the conflicts and so on. But it doesn't necessarily mean when you're an engineer you don't have to be social. I really don't think it's the case anymore. At least, if you're working in an agile team, you always have to talk to people. If you're developing something, you have to talk to people. When you have a problem, you have to talk to people. If you don't, you just stuck there for days. You cannot be a lonely wolf anymore. So it still requires a social thing. And I don't think that women are more social than men. It's just bias we put on people. That's my opinion. Maybe people think differently. I don't know. But it doesn't necessarily mean that women are social and men are not. It's more of, I think, more challenging things, or more in the back, because in the back end you actually don't require UX design or things like that. You don't. It's not the essence of the job. People think that these are more challenging things, even though it's not necessarily is. And they put more men roles in it because they think they're more competent in those things. That's what I think. Because people think that DevOps and backend is more challenging than frontend, which I don't necessarily agree with. And they put more, or they find more people. Let's not say but find more people in engineer for backend engineers, men backend engineers. It's kind of a challenging thing too, because also sometimes women also want to be front-end engineer instead of a back-end engineer.
Yeah, I mean, naturally, like, that's okay. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, it's a very difficult thing to explain too, because also I'm not sure if it's related, but to be a front engineer, you can also do boot camps, for example, and become a front-end engineer. Or for product, if you want to be a Scrum Master, if you want to be a product owner, you don't necessarily need a very heavy software engineering background. For backend and DevOps, you more in need of finishing a software engineering program. And that's more men-dominated programs.
Yeah,
that's also one of the things I think.
I also rarely seen, like, for example, backend or DevOps boot camps or similar education programs. Like, I mean, I see more on the front end side and also in design and also maybe product management. I see more educational things than the backend or DevOps in the entry level. That might be another reason, maybe. But I wanna like quickly touch on the point that you said that the engineering part is more challenging, or it requires more engineering part. I see the sense, like, the like women or maybe other underrepresented genders have to prove themselves more than men in these technical discussions.
Yeah, definitely.
So why they have to prove, for example? I mean, I've never faced in a situation personally.
Yeah.
That's why I'm curious. Why a woman have to prove themselves in engineering discussions, in technical discussions?
Yeah, I can say lots of things about it because it happened lots of times in my life. And I don't see myself as a bad engineer. I think I'm really good at my job. People trust me and I get along with people. It's not about competency. Of course, I cannot be very objective of myself, but I'm confident on it. And I really, yeah, it's happened so many times. Like, for example, in technical discussions, when I'm in a team, like we're in a room with 6 men and I'm the only woman, and I say something, some opinion about them, some purely technical discussion, and I'm brushing off very easily most of the time until I prove myself. And then some other man sitting next to me say it out loud again, the second time, repeat everything I say with different words, and then they listen to it. It happens so many times. And I don't know why. Of course, I know why, because I think it's the discrimination or biases or prejudice thoughts. But it's really, really happening so many times. And I think we need to do something to change it, because most of the time, everyone has valuable opinions in the room. But since it doesn't look like, or it's not fitting our biases, we just tend to not to listen to it carefully.
I remember in one of the AI conferences, AI also has the similar problem of the gender. And I remember, I think it was NIPS. I don't remember the woman's name, but she said that the best thing anyone can do if in one of these situations is that just speaking up, saying that. So, for example, as a man, I can just say, this is what Yasemin said exactly at that point. As a man, I can say that, because as a woman, what she said in this conference talk is, as a woman, if you say so by yourself, saying that, okay, this is what I said, it puts an awkward moment. It creates an awkwardness, People think that you are putting yourself in front of something, you are trying to praise yourself maybe. People might think differently. Also, if you don't say it, that's a problem, obviously. So it's a kind of a dilemma. And one recommendation from her in the conference talk said that just raise up and say that this was exactly what, for example, Yasemin said in that case.
Yeah.
Do you think that works?
Yeah, it definitely helps for the sake of the discussion, but it's also putting, for example, personally putting me under also, again, like in this awkward situation, like, why do I need an approval of other men to say exactly the same thing I say? It's just, why don't you care about it in the first time? Why does the other guy have to say it? It's also very weird for me. So most of the time I repeat it twice, and I even more directly, so I say, like, that's what I said. And it's okay. It can be awkward. It can be awkward for them. It's not my fault because they didn't listen to me,
Absolutely.
It's not about praising myself. It's just about being confident and speaking up for yourself. That's what I think.
I totally agree. I just sometimes think that, by the way, I just want to state this. I'm doing this session just because I can learn. If I made a mistake, if I say something wrong, just please tell me. Also, people who is watching that one, if I say something wrong, please tell me so that I can learn. So this is just a quick opening my heart, because I'm doing this session to learn the topic. So in that case, for example, I had the feeling that I know you as a person, and I know that you can say that this is exactly what I said. But I think not everyone can say this one out loud. And especially when you are facing, like when people are facing a lot of discrimination, maybe they are, maybe not directly, but indirectly as well, they are facing a lot of discrimination. They might be like, they tend to stay back, they just say it. It's not obvious all the time. So I know you as a person, and I know you can say it. I know you will say it, that I'm really happy, but not everyone is the same.
No,
and it might help to those people, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It's not that I was always like this, of course. In my first job, I was very like, when I was a junior, when I didn't know anything about how to work with people, I was always like, yeah, whatever you say. Or sometimes even in this job, when I first started, I was not very out loud about every opinion I have, because I was also kind of scared that might be not very valuable because I'm not experienced, or maybe it's all of the things I put on myself for years that, like, I don't know, instinctively, like, I might not have valuable opinions. It's also, of course, insecurities have like rationing. When you're a woman, you're more likely to have it, and then you most likely sometimes, of course, not to speak up for your opinions. So of course at that point, and then backing up it's very helpful. Yeah.
Also, like, so I want to talk about this, the when you're junior, or since we said that women needs to prove themselves as technically. Why do you think the woman is treated like they have less experience, that even if they have more? I know, or I can guess that you might have been in one of those situations before, like you have the same experience, but people treated you, or maybe they didn't hear your thoughts, maybe they ignored it, maybe.
Yeah, it's definitely like the prejudice people have, I think, because we are living in this patriarchal system, and everyone thinks that men are more powerful, their opinions are more valuable, they're in this for more years than what women have. So it's just people tend to listen to them more. And I cannot say that there's not a knowledge gap. I think there's also a knowledge gap, and sometimes, men can have more valuable opinions, of course, but it's not something that we can generalize. It's totally individual. Some people will have more knowledge, and some people have less knowledge. Sometimes it's a man, sometimes it's a woman. You cannot just generalize it. It depending on what you saw, what you did in your life, what you did at work, how you speak to people. Maybe you talk to people more, so you know more about the domain. It's changing all the time. So why it's all prejudice? I don't think there's any logical explanation to this. There's just some little bit of logical background, maybe just because men are generally, since they're, I don't know, primary school, like the first thing, like since the day they were born, they also have so much responsibility and pressure. Like, my son is going to be an engineer, my son is going to be a doctor, something like that. And of course they focus more on this topic. Rather than women are more like, you're going to be a great mom, you're going to be a great teacher. So they're prone to more social skills. But it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. It's just all this pressure put on you throughout the years, men and women, I think.
So
but you can be whatever you want. Basically, we're living in a modern world. It's not 100 years ago. It doesn't have to be like you have to sit at your child. If you want it, you can do it too. But what I mean is, no one can force it. You can do whatever you want.
Of course. I mean, also, I think it might be related to that so since from the day one, let's say in this current system, boys are acted like they're going to be engineers, they're going to be doctors, and etc. And we are more likely acted like they're going to be moms or maybe nurses. Is I think one of the
you cannot find many men in nurse. Men nurse.
And also I think it's what I was trying to say is the entrance barrier, and also maybe the from day one people are. I want to be a computer engineer back in high school. So from that point on, I focused on this path.
Yeah.
And this might, because my father wanted me to be a doctor, for example, but this might be different for women. And it's also the cases where you want to go is the entrance barrier is higher for women in this case, because from high school on, I wanted to be a computer engineer, and I was supported to be a computer engineer. And women might not get this support from day one. And so, like, for example, a woman becomes like maybe 25 and wants to be a software engineer. There's like maybe 10 years gap, because just because of the system. So this might be the problem. I think this might be an explanation of why.
Yeah, that's one of the problems, definitely, because when I think about myself, for example, my family, my parents were not like, you're a woman, you have to do this or do this. Of course, they want me to get married and stuff like that. It's just like very typical things that put on me, of course. But it was never like you're going to be a very woman focused thing or something like that. They were open. They were not necessarily telling me to act like a girl, for example. I always like my father is also a computer engineer, and I grew up with it, and there was computers and I was playing with it. I was playing games with my cousins. Like, I was never like, okay, you're a girl, out of this room. It was never like that. So I grew up with it, and I tend to like it. It's not because I'm a genius or something, It's just I grew up with it, and I was always exposed to it. So eventually it happened. It's not always for like this for most of the time, for other women, of course. But what I mean is, when you don't have this pressure to be something, you can actually be anything. That's what I mean.
Yeah, I agree. I wanna quickly switch topic to this promotion, because I think it's also related to that one. That why women get less promotion than men in general? I see this in almost in every industry, not specific to software. And so, do women not get promoted also if they are not confident and masculine? Because there's an image of being confident as a maybe manager or as a leader and etc. And people has this, I don't know why, but this picture of a woman that being confident is not for women. I don't understand, but some people have this point of view. And I want to understand why women get less promotion than men in general. Also, like, to the people watching us, please write your thoughts as well in the chat.
So I think to start with, we can define what confident is. Like, because most of the time being confident is most correlated to being manly, if that is a word, like alpha male, like very tough, very never smiles. It just puts the fist on the table, like, this is what I want, this is how it's gonna be. I'm reassuring you, there will be no problems in our company. Everything is happy. Like, okay. But there's also another type of management which is going to that direction in IT, I think. More collaborative, more people-oriented. People are talking all the time. They're more social. We have Friday drinks, more social. People are more like happy. They have a bit more of a work-life balance. The work is not the center of everything. So what I mean is, confident is not the first option. You can also be confident by just speaking up what your opinion, being sure about it, but still be collaborative with people, listen to other people, and be okay to changes. Like, it doesn't mean that you're not confident. You can also open to change and listen to people, It's a different type of confident. And I think people seek more the first option, because it's the traditional model, like have more tough managers. That's why the women act like men, more masculine suits, like, more like that type of women tend to be more managers, like on average. But because whenever you put on makeup, you're a bit more feminine, people are like, oh, she's just on the looks. She's not doing anything. But it doesn't have to be that way. Even like it happened to me in my first job. Like, we had a very feminine manager, and she was very pretty, and she was coming into it like very feminine, and we were making fun of it. I was even doing it. Like, I was very surrounded with people like, oh, there shouldn't be any good woman manager. The women managers suck. They don't do anything. They just walk around in the office. People talk like this, and you start to think like it. Like, okay, and then years after, like, why was I thinking that? What the hell was I thinking? It's just, it doesn't correlate like right now, because I was surrounded in a toxic environment.
It's very interesting because the effect on you as well as a woman, having a woman manager. I mean, I'm quite surprised, to be honest, because I think this is more related to being a group effect on that side. But I see that, this totally makes sense. I mean, I've been working with, my manager was women in the last 3.5 years, or maybe 4. And I was quite happy. And my manager's manager was women as well. And in our current environment, I think, like, in maybe modern world, not the traditional manager style, is more like, as you said, the communication is more important, like the empathy is more important. So I think women are better in this job, in my opinion. I don't separate it as a gender, but women are better because they tend to care more first.
Yeah, because it's also it's expected from them. So women has this skills more prone, like they have the skills more than men because it was expected of them. Also,
I agree. But I think that so I'm looking back to my career and I'm thinking of my managers and also like the upper levels, going up. And I think that, but I see that there are less women on top. And this is called glass ceiling effect. Like when it's like imagine there's a glass ceiling on top of a woman. So whenever they want to go high, it's kind of invisible, but there's a something preventing them to go high. And why do we have this glass ceiling?
It's because of all the things we talked about. I think it's because, like I said, when you're more feminine, when you don't act like a man, when you're not tough, people don't even consider you as a manager, and they don't recommend you as a manager. Because when you're like, okay, I'm going to take care of myself, I'm going to do my skincare routine today, and people will make fun of you because you should not be doing it. You should only be talking about work. Whereas men always talk about football, which is not related to work. It's just because it's manly, they're able to talk about it. But women cannot talk about makeup, for example.
No.
It's very, very hypocritical. It's just not, doesn't make sense logically for me.
I think there's no logic at all.
It's just a traditional method that we have for years and years and years. And maybe 100 years ago, maybe 200 years ago, it was very efficient. People had, I don't know, because there were more wars, people, I don't know, women had to be in home, wherever. I don't care. But right now, in the modern world, it doesn't make any sense. And it's not efficient even. Because why are you lowering your power by not giving women the same opportunity? It's just not efficient for even economy, It's just benefiting the people on top, white males, and they're the only ones benefiting from this because that's the way it is right now.
Also, okay, I want to talk about the salary as well on this manager, or maybe the glass ceiling effect, or the result of this. So today I saw Developer Happiness Index. This a survey has been done by honeypot.io, and they published the results. And so in the survey, while both men and women place equal importance on salary, female developers tend to be more satisfied than male developers with salaries. But the case is that there's a pay gap. So despite these high levels of salary satisfaction amongst female developers, they found that there's a strong evidence of a gender pay gap. For example, pay gap increases from 2% to 9% in the first 2 years. I couldn't believe, but just in 2 years, like it increases 7%. And how do the seniority and other effects reflect on the salary? What do you think?
To begin with, in entry level, I think women are paying less. Just again, because of the reasons we talked about. And the second thing, I think women are less likely to ask for promotion. They're less likely to ask for a raise, because there was also like this thing, like women don't apply for jobs if they don't think they 100% okay for the job. They don't 100% has the skill required for the job, but men tend to do it like 60%. So it's also like men are very women are very self-aware, and they don't think they deserve the job or something. They don't ask for it, And also that might be some other possibility, again, that women are more likely to have more work-life balance in place. So they're more happier when they have a good balance. They have things outside of work, but work is not the focus of everything. But men are more focusing on things, and they demand more things at work. That might be the reason. There might be so many other reasons too as well.
Yeah, that was one of the results from the same survey, that women tend to care more about the work-life balance, for example.
Yeah.
So more than men.
Yeah.
I generally think that the things that we talked before, like they have to prove themselves technically, for example, might be one reason. So I'm just considering my performance yearly reviews, and when I consider this, sometimes I need to like list down what I have done, what I have achieved, for example, and with my goals, maybe expected things that I have achieved. And this might be the case also for women, that since they have to prove themselves technically time to time, maybe they have this problem. It might have an effect on the same performance review as well. So and every time also to go on a promotion, you need a sponsor in general. So someone should sponsor you and saying that, okay, this person is doing really good job, and I think we should promote him or her, and then you need this sponsor. And since all the things that we talked about, getting this sponsors might be really hard, really hard in that case.
So I have a question for you. How many times did you ask for a salary raise?
In total, all my lifetime, I think it might be around 10 times.
Me, 0.
Really?
Yeah, it was always given to me. Like, because I was overachieving something, and people were giving me a raise, like really high amounts of raise. In my first job, it was even 20%.
Wow.
But it was, I never asked for it. But if I asked for it, I think it would be even more right now. But I never did it. I never even imagined asking it.
Oh, interesting. I mean, I'm thinking back again. I asked, that's really interesting point, because I remember, like, I didn't ask when I was a junior. I said it's what was given. They said, okay, this is but it was like a company procedure, so I had no effect on. But in later jobs that I have been, I generally said, okay, these are the things that I have done, achieved, and etc. And also my manager said the same things. Okay, this is what you have done really great, and etc. And the case was, my manager asked me how much do I want. So I gave the number in general. Then we started negotiating. Maybe that might be the reason, but it is so interesting. I mean, I'm thinking at the moment, that's always they ask me how much do I want. So nobody asks you that how much you want?
Normally, it's like no. They just give a number, and it's normally a good number. It's not like a bad number. It's okay. But now that we think of it, I'm thinking that I could have asked more, because I never do that. I sometimes because I work not this one even, like I mostly work for corporate companies, and they always had this huge procedure that you have to fill out a form with 20 questions. What did you do this year? It's like this question. It's like, what did you do for God today? It's like it's like lots of things that you have to fill, and at the end they just give you a number and it's okay. But when I talk to my male colleagues, it's more like they also ask even more, like, but what about this number? I never asked this question.
I've done that before.
Yeah, I've never done it because men more likely to do it. Maybe it's because they think they have the right to do it. I don't know, because I was also, I cannot generalize it, of course, because it's also my notion of thinking like, the salary is okay. I can do things with it. I can travel. I can take a couple of dance lessons. It's okay for me. But I was never asking for more.
Interesting. So do you think that since we talked about the pay gap, do you think or do you know that you have lower salary than your the same role as you have maybe in your previous companies? Maybe you don't want to talk about the current one. It's also okay. Did you ever were you aware of it before?
I was always hired for a bit of a less salary, but then in the first salary raise, I was always in the same level with the others.
Okay.
It was also because in Turkey it's a bit different. People tend to hire you more if you graduate from a better university.
Yeah,
we have the rankings of the university. So if you're graduated from Boğaziçi University, for example, one of the best ones, you tend to get more. If you're from Ankara, which is like a top 10, but not the top 3, it's more like, okay. But then they actually see that you're actually capable of doing things and they increase it. But for a woman and men, if I have to compare it, I cannot say much in my own experience because I don't talk about these things with colleagues. But with my friends, I can also not compare too much because they're different companies. But I can say I'm a bit lower than because I have lots of software engineer colleagues. Yeah.
Okay. I have one question. This is like a bit of debate, and it's been happening many times. I saw these discussions over and over again, but I want to ask you what do you think of it. So just to increase the diversity, should we hire more women without, regardless of their experience? So like, imagine there are two people we are interviewing, and one of them is male, one of them is female, and let's say male has more experience than we need, but female has a bit less, just a little bit less experience, but we want to increase the diversity as well. So should we hire women or should we hire men in that case?
If there's a huge difference, I think no, because
Which one no?
You should not hire, of course, if there's a huge difference. If you're looking for a senior experience, and the woman has more or less mid-level, of course you should not. But if they're both mid-levels, if they're not both seniors, if mid-level, it's just a very open thing, And if there's room for room for increasing your knowledge and stuff like that, I think they might have a better chance here, because the gap is also happening because of we cannot break the cycle. Lots of the time, men tend to have more experience because they do this stuff starting from high school, starting from university, because they always thought that they're good at math, but women are not. And they focus more on that because they're more confident on that and stuff like that. So we have to break this cycle somehow so that we have more diverse teams. And I think if there's not a huge difference, but just a little bit, I think women can have more chance in that. And some people think that, but that's not fair. Yeah, but the system is not fair also.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
You have to do something about it.
I agree in general. I think the situations are unique, so we cannot generalize it. And I do think as well that the depending on the position of the company and also the position of the project, if you, as you said, if there's a higher difference in experience, and if we need more seniority and more experience, then definitely hiring the senior in this case is a chance. But if company, in my opinion, if company is big enough, if they can afford having less experienced person in the team instead of having higher experience, because also the salary is, it's higher for more experienced people. And if the company can afford having less experienced person, I think it's better to hire women in this case.
Yeah.
But depending on the company and depending on the situation of the project and the company as well.
Yeah. It's also debatable if you're making your team more diverse, hiring more women. If the women and men tend to think more and more like if they're both looking at the perspective of a white male, it's not not the right case, because sometimes also women do that to themselves. Like even in my case, in my first job, I did that too. Like I was thinking my women manager was bad but it was actually not the case. No one was supporting her because she was not woman manager, and she was decreasing more and more every day. Yeah. So yeah, we need to do something about it generally.
I agree with Matthew. Matthew says equity instead of equality. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
I agree. It's equity. It's not equality.
Like this, yeah.
So I wanna, since we are talking about a woman in this case as a specific gender here, everyone knows that women is not only men, or women are not only genders, and we have there are many different genders and many different representations, like ethnicity, nationality, or other parts, and we tend to be biased in most of the cases. So like, for example, if you're hiring a Christian person, we might think that, okay, they are Christian, they are more religious, maybe it's not fit for us, or there's this bias, and we have this effect on gender, of course, but it's not limited to gender. What do you think about people being biased, and are we biased actually, or are you biased?
Of course, I am biased. You are biased. Everyone's biased. Yeah. It would be lying, like if we say we're biased, because we have experience. We have so many people around us telling us things every day. So you, of course, eventually get biased. But the problem is to be aware of it. And when someone is trying to shut you off and like, listen, it's not like this. You should be open to change yourself. That's the thing. Of course, I have so many different or wrong opinions, of course. But I think diversity is a very, very sensitive topic, because it doesn't necessarily mean that if you hire, let's say, a Muslim person to your team, just because you think that it's coming from a Muslim country, it doesn't mean that it will act like a Muslim. Or just because you're hiring a gay person, it doesn't have to be stereotypical gay that you see in YouTube, It's just not like that. So you have to think more of what your team needs. What are you gaining from this diversity? That's my opinion. So I don't think everyone should have the same opinions in a team.
Yes.
I think there should be involving confident people, empowered people, even if they are not yet, they can be trained to do so. You can be empowered later, but it should be more open people, open to communication. So you have a good, healthy environment that you can discuss things without getting offended.
Okay, in companies, there's this, the cultural fit in the interview processes.
Yeah.
And what I have seen in general is, while looking for cultural fit, we have these biases more and more. Yeah. And because you want to keep the team happy, you don't want to have a big conflicts and etc. Both maybe culturally or maybe in other aspects as well. How can we keep the balance? I mean, this cultural, while we are looking at cultural fit, while we are interviewing the candidate to hire, and we are looking at cultural fit, how can we make this balance without maybe losing some of our biases but keeping some of them? What do you think? Can we make it balanced, or how, if you have an idea?
Like you mean like a balanced team or balanced diversity or
Balance, let's say balanced diversity, because if you have a culture in the company, and if you want to hire the similar culture as well all the time to keep the conflicts less and less, basically you are not diverse anymore
yeah,
at
yeah,
some
yeah,
point.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
you need to get some different point of views. How
yeah,
can you keep
exactly.
the balance? I mean, in general.
That's why diversity really matters, because you really don't need people not saying anything in a technical discussion. It's the most frustrating thing. I was doing it too. Like, I was not stating my opinion, but then I start to do it more and more and more, and people actually listen because it makes sense. And some people say that, oh, I never thought of this. This is a very nice sentence to hear, also to say to someone. Because if you're also always doing like, okay, that's what we're doing for the last 10 years anyway, why are we even discussing this? No, it's just not adding anything. But it doesn't mean that you should also give up on every tradition you have. Of course, your company will have its values, its traditions. It doesn't mean that you have to be open to every change, you can embrace everything. But it's more about being open to listen to it respectfully, and to be able to discuss it in a healthy environment. How to keep the balance is to, I don't know, it's a company culture question, I think, that most of the managers, most of the CEOs trying to find. But the most working efficient way is to have diverse team right now. That's why everything comes to a money point, you know?
Yeah.
No one is doing it because, oh, let's be nice. No, because diverse teams work better, because they value more, because you're more open. It's not
Yeah.
because let's be nice to each other.
Yeah. You get more
Unfortunately.
ideas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because diversity, you get more opinions. Maybe you get more solutions to your problem, that you can select one of the solutions that you have at hand. We talked about, like, I'm a bit I'm a bit stuck on the point that the experience you had with your previous manager, that you were even criticizing
Yeah.
as a bad manager that
Yeah.
you had. I have a question, like, how can we make the projects independent from people? Because I do think in that case, if we separate the projects from people, then in that case, basically there's a project and there's a people, and maybe not specific the project, maybe there's a company as well. And then there's people on the one side, and so that everyone can be themselves, basically, you know, like regardless of gender, nationality. So, like, how can we separate those two, that so we don't have these discriminations, or maybe we don't have these gaps, let's say, in gender?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm just thinking, like, my last experiences, because it also happened too many times. Someone also asking a question,
Yeah,
a very long one.
you
But
go ahead.
anyway, so can you repeat the question a bit more?
Okay, yeah, sure. So I talked about, like, the having a bad manager doesn't mean that the person is bad, you know, or
exactly.
person is not capable of. Just because the situation is awkward and weird, maybe the if we can separate the project and the people, it might be better off for the both managers and also the individual contributors, that we have so everyone can find themselves a place in the project, regardless of their gender and nationality and etc. So how can we make the projects independent from people?
Yeah,
that's the question.
I think it's a very, 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 very easy approach to blame someone in the company. It's very easy to blame a manager all the time, like, oh, they're not managing it well. And when it's a woman, it's also very nitpicking, like, oh, she's not a good manager because she's a woman, and women suck at managing. Basically, it happened in my first job, even in my second job, it was also. But when I think about it more rational right now, it was more because of these people were not involved in meetings, for example. When I was working in one of my jobs, there was this woman manager that were not very liked from other managers because they think that she was there just because of the company's diversity policies, but she actually didn't have the talent for it, technical talent for it, even though she was a very social manager. It doesn't necessarily need to have the technical skills, all of it at least. And they just excluded her more and more of the meetings. She didn't know anything about it at the end. And then they blamed her even more. She doesn't know anything. Of course she doesn't know anything. You're not calling her anything. You know, it's just they even do some company events. They don't call her because she's outside of it. It's very, very brutal. And what I mean is it's very easy to blame someone. And when projects fail, I think it's not because of one person, but it's because of the process. That's what I think. That's what I come to it. Because if you don't have the feedback loop to give this feedback to your manager that you do this wrong, and if you still also don't have the vice versa, that if you have a problem as an employee, you cannot talk about this with your manager, then of course there will be something missing. And some people are not very open to it. Like, for example, I don't initiate this conversation most of the time, but since there's a process, like in my current company right now, we have one-on-ones, for example, every 2 weeks. So I have to talk about it. And I have a half an hour window and I talk about it. And I also do it the other way, yearly or monthly. I talk about what I think about my manager. So these things are fixable. It's just like blaming someone is very easy. But if you keep your process more clean, more open, I think it will be less likely your project will fail because of a person.
Yeah. So what can we do is basically improve the processes and be more inclusive and be open, be transparent, maybe even, and then improve the processes and not blame anyone just because they hold a position, even if they are accountable for any failure. For example, it is, I think 99% it is not only one person's fault in any case.
Yeah.
So I wanna ask, or maybe talk about what can we do part a bit more, because this improving process is the one thing, and I think the second part is the language. As also Matthew said in the comments about the communication, like including everyone in your talking, in your words, and etc. And this is generally a big discussion. For example, using "Hey guys," because I checked the dictionaries, and some of them says it's calling a group, only in only saying "Hey guys." But even in that case, some people think that it is not including everyone, and I'm one of those people. I that's why I switch my words to "Hey folks" or "Hey colleagues" or "Hey people." Doesn't matter. And since English is gender-based language, we have he or she and etc. Not 100% gender-based language like German. In German, you have every object is masculine or feminine, so you have more gender influence. And in Turkish, there is no gender at all, for example. So for me, it was, in the beginning, it was hard to understand everything. But I think the second part is being inclusive in the language. And my recommendation is don't use "Hey guys," for example, or similar phrases that might exclude some people.
Yeah.
So you never know. And for the language, I have a second recommendation that I personally do is using singular they in day-to-day discussions. For example, in German, the user is masculine, and people tend to use he when they are talking about users. So they are always saying his or he or him and etc. And I tend to use they as a singular they. That's a form in English. You can check out Wikipedia as well to get better opinion on it. You just basically you are talking about one person, but you are using they. And so what do you have as a recommendation? So what can we do? And especially maybe for men, so as if you would like to recommend me something to do, what would you recommend me personally?
I personally am not very offended by "Hey guys," to be honest. But it's also depending on how people say it. it's a very sensitive topic. It's a very funny topic. When my friends say it, I don't mind. When a colleague I really don't know so much about says it, it feels a bit weird. And I don't like hey folk because it's not that close. It's weird. I don't know. Hey people, I don't know. It really depends on the situation. And you really, really, really can tell what people mean it. And so for calling people like, hey guys, hey folks, it depends on you. It depends on how close you are with these people. But the other thing you mentioned is, I think, very important. Like when you said people are talking about user or things like that. For example, I was watching this, the other podcast, like we were talking about an interview and something. So it comes to a point like you're talking about like a hypothetical interviewee, and it says like he always, like he asked me this question, and like it can be a she, it can be someone else. Why does it have to be he all the time? Why does it have to be like the first person you imagine visually is like a male developer, like very geeky and playing video games all the time? I do that too, but it's not the question. It's just like, it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be stereotypical. So I don't know. It's just depending on how close you are with people. But I think with singular they, I think you have a point, especially in formal mails when you are offering someone something. It has to be very sensitive, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a bit weird in Germany, even, like, for example, when they have this job openings, they have, in English, you just say, we're looking for software engineers. But in German, you say like Entwickler like this star asterisk thing. It's like, when I first came here, I was like, what is this? What's the meaning of this? Why there's so many signs everywhere all of a sudden? But like, it makes sense, definitely.
Yeah, so for the people who doesn't know the German ads or job ads, it's as far as I know, it's legally they have to be inclusive. So in German, Software Entwickler is software developer, but it's for male, and Software Entwicklerin is actually for female. And there's also being inclusive. There's a star, so they just say Software Entwickler /in and then star.
I use hey everyone too, by the way. I always do hey everyone. Yeah,
that's nice.
Folks,
yeah. Why do you think folks is weird?
I think it's a bit formal. That's why. For example, when I'm writing in the Slack channel, which everyone is included, I can say hey folks, but it's a bit weird when I talk to you and say hey folks. It's a bit formal, but it's totally the personal favorite. Yeah, it's just, you can say it. I'm not trying to force you to not use folks.
Do you have another recommendation for me? Is there anything comes to your mind?
I think you already doing a good work, even doing this. I think it doesn't have to. We're not like people very super educated, the most educated person in the world to talk about this topic. But even to have this thing and talk it in your friends when, for example, when you have a problem at work, gender-based problem, and you talk about it with your friends, with your partner, people tend to include this kind of topic more, even. Like, oh, it's happening because there's discrimination. But before, maybe they were not even thinking about it. So I think this kind of streams, this kind of discussion is always helpful. I really thank you for even talking about this. And just keep reading about it. Keep educating. And that's what I do too. I don't know anything. I just keep reading almost every day about what's going on in the world. What can I be more sensitive but not awkward too much? So yeah, that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'm really happy doing this, and I'm reading every day. Almost every day I'm reading one or more things, at least on Twitter. I follow many people, and there are like so many discussions, so many mistakes have been publicly made, and also so many intentionally, I think they're intentional, but I'm not sure. There are so many discriminations is happening, and it is not a good word, especially on Twitter. I mean, Twitter is a bit messy, I would say, but let's not talk about Twitter. But yeah, I want to personally thank you to come here and teach me many different things. Tell me your perspective, and also like everything. Like I was quite surprised to hear many different things from you. I'm so happy, and definitely I will read more, and I will recommend everyone watching this to read and be aware.
Hey, did you watch this? Hey,
yeah. I will nudge them to watch the stream.
Yeah.
yeah, and also I will share this stream on YouTube as well. But I think the most important thing is being aware of the problem, and if we with this stream or with this video, if we have done one thing and maybe brought awareness to only one person, I think it works. So it is enough. And I see that there are not right now many people are watching, and then I think it will be okay. So again, thank you. Do you have anything else to add?
No. It was a very nice talk. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. So people can find you on LinkedIn, and I think if they have anything that they can reach you out. So the URL is in the description of the video. They can find. Thanks everyone for watching. That was really nice talk, and I really enjoyed, and I learned so much, and I'm really happy. And thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Yasemin, to be here.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.